Van Hollen.
Thank you, and thank both of you for your testimony here. And Dr.
Senator Van Hollen, I'm sorry.
That's
Senator
what I thought.
Coons is next.
Okay.
And I know he's got to get back to another hearing, so I apologize.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you, Senator. Thank you for your patience. I'm the ranking member on the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee. We are having the Army budget hearing right now. And the discussion you were just having about innovation, agility, and iteration is actually a big piece of what's being discussed downstairs. So, Mr. Rao, you agree that Russia is an adversary of the United States and that the Ukrainians have inflicted significant damage?
Yes.
My understanding, over the last 3 years, Ukraine's imposed enormous costs on one of our principal global adversaries. More than 1 million casualties, half the Black Sea Fleet, thousands of Russian tanks destroyed. I could go on. Without a single American soldier directly in harm's way, for less than 1% of our federal budget, while modernizing our own stocks through replenishment. I continue to be all in terms of our support for Ukraine in their war against Russian aggression. As are many of my colleagues, both Republican and Democrat. It's a worthy investment in our national security. But you raised what I think is the critical question. How quickly can we learn from the EW, UAS, counter-UAS experiences of the Ukrainians and implement it not just in the U.S. Armed Forces, but among our NATO allied forces? What recommendations do you have about how we can strengthen and increase the speed of that iteration?
Well, there are a few lessons. The first is, I think, to get defense punch, you do have to have strong top-line numbers, and even the FY26 request with reconciliation monies built in is around 3%. That's a long ways away from, for example, what Senator Wicker recommended last year, Peace Through Strength, or what the NATO allies will describe next week as the new defense investment pledge. But within that, I think it's very important to focus on procurement numbers. The Wales Pledge had a scheme where it was 2% of GDP for defense, but 20% of those 2% went to procurement, and I think that's worth keeping in mind. What some of my colleagues in the Center for Defense Concepts and Technology at Hudson have described is the value of looking to the commercial base to find solutions for defense problems. This helps reduce costs and also accelerate the speed of adaptation. Modularity, I think, is also something worth studying. Rather than expensive, exquisite, bespoke systems. And then the economies of scale that we can achieve through our joint procurement projects is something I think we should look at. Europe has some 12 tanks because, of course, it is a mosaic of nations, more than a continent acting in the defense sphere together. And joint procurement would be a worthy thing. And the last point I would make, which my colleague Mike Gallagher, the former congressman from Wisconsin, wrote in the pages of the Wall Street Journal recently, is maybe looking at cost plus contracting as a way to get more bang for our buck. So all of those elements, along with studying the Ukrainian war effort, which they are so eager to share with us, can really improve our performance on the battlefield.
Thank you, Dr. Polyakova. The same sort of question to you, if I might. His reference to 12 different tanks on the continent. The Ukrainians have done a masterful job of managing to service and to keep in the fight a remarkable array of armored personnel carriers and tanks and artillery pieces, dozens of different systems, despite not having the OEM and long supply chain that we insist is necessary. They've MacGyvered their way into capable fighting forces, not just drones, but across all these platforms. What lessons are there for us about our procurement, and what lessons are there for NATO? We're about to go to a NATO summit where Europe's pledged nearly $1 trillion in defense spending. What are the opportunities here for joint production and for speeding innovation?
Well, Senator, thank you for that question, and you point to a core issue that I raised in my written testimony as well. I'll just summarize. One, you're right, the Ukrainians are operating something like over 400 different kinds of systems from different places, some domestically produced, many from foreign partners, and that's been incredible to see. I think the main lesson for us is, one, we have to simplify our foreign military sales. If we really want to take advantage of what's happening in Ukraine, the big question that our European partners have, from the defense industry in particular, is how do we actually do joint ventures and co-development, co-production with U.S. defense industrial base? It is incredibly difficult. ITAR is a huge issue, as you know. On top of that, I think NATO needs to really push forward in joint procurement, which is part of the answer to your question about how do you translate money into capabilities, because money isn't everything. It has to be spent in the right things in the right ways, and NATO is the right framework to coordinate those efforts across the alliance to make sure this complementarity, not duplication.
I just traveled to the Philippines and Taiwan with Senator Ricketts. The upcoming NATO summit does not include Indo-Pacific partners, I think a significant mistake. How do you think the lessons of Ukraine can and should be learned or applied across some of our Indo-Pacific allies and partners?
May I answer the time? Thank you. This is a fantastic question that we started to discuss earlier. There is already a technology export vector that is taking place directly from Ukraine capabilities that are being learned on the ground by companies, the private sector, directly for export to Taiwan. That's already happening right now. My concern is the United States, we are missing out. And I will just point to Ukraine's recent operation that I think you saw, the spiderweb operation, and we cannot defend against that operation. I don't know, because I'm not privy to that information. I don't know if we can carry it out, that kind of operation in a country like Russia. So I think that is all a huge opportunity for us to learn. And to your point about the European theater and the Indo-Pacific theater being inexplicably linked is the key point. And Taiwan is very, very interested in buying directly from those defense tech companies that have capabilities they've tested in the battlefield and that they have been able to innovate in a super, super rapid fashion. And they're buying those capabilities as we speak. We should be too, but we need to do a lot of work to simplify that through FMS in particular.